In this video, I'm going to show you the exact system that I used to land my first 5-figure client. Not only did it lead to my first 5-figure client, but it also led to me building a pipeline where I consistently got clients on a month-to-month basis. And all of this without me needing an existing audience, all of this without me needing a prior portfolio, and all of this without having to run any ads. So if you're ready, let's get straight into it. Now, when most people think about client acquisition, especially when they're software engineers and they want to get into the business world, they immediately think of the product. So their immediate thing is building a better product. If I build a good product, the people will come. However, your first client, so in this particular case, I'm going to say your first $10,000, is not a product problem. It is not going to come from a good or a bad product. The most immediate thing is going to be getting in front of one person, okay? By the end of this video, you're going to have the exact framework that you can utilize, that you can use to get not only your first 10K client, but also the next ones from time and time again. The exact same client that I closed that was worth 5 figures for me, at the time, I did not even have a single website for it. Okay? Now, I do want to make something clear. Info alone is just going to be motivation. So if you want to take the most away from this video, you should watch it and do exactly what I'm telling you to do by the end of the day. So this only works if you genuinely move, okay? And this is for you if you consider yourself a pretty good software engineer, you have 0 clients, or maybe you have 1 or 2 and you're struggling to get your next ones, and you're pretty much tired of trying and consistently getting ignored. If you were expecting some magic funnel that works while you sleep, this is the wrong video for that. This one's going to cover most of the boring stuff that you need to do first before you set up those systems down the line. So before we get into it, I want to go over a few individuals who use this exact same framework to acquire some of their first clients. Masa landed his first client without even speaking English. English wasn't his first language, and it was a $10,000 project with a monthly retainer. He went on to get more clients similar to that stature. John ended up, in one of his quotes, never in a million years would I think this would be possible. 3 months in, ended up doing a very particular business for HVAC companies, providing an AI service for them, received a $4.5 million acquisition offer about a year later. Chris, his first ever sales call, and he closed. Now he has over $20,000 a month in pipeline that comes his way. Paul made more money in January and February of 2026 than the previous year at his 9-to-5. He's now at over $50,000 a month, and just a few days ago, he sent another screenshot of him landing a $15,000 project. Damir, another great example, very technically adept software engineer without too much sales skills or client acquisition skills, ended up landing a mid 5-figure engagement, close to $50,000. And of course, another example, Dom, ends up landing a client on the way back from Dallas to Sydney, simply talking on an airplane. The other examples, such as this. And the point I want to make here is none of these individuals had an audience. They did not have distribution. So what you might have been used to seeing on the Indie Hacker News, or just in general, most of the individuals online who seem to be extremely successful with a software, they all have the number one thing necessary for that, distribution. But these individuals did not have an audience. They did not have distribution. They all did the same boring things first, reaching out. And that really is the whole secret. But you have to do it the right way. So let's break it down, what the right way actually entails. So why don't you have a client yet, right? Most people think, okay, I need more tools, I need more followers, I need more time, I need more of something. But what you have to understand is you already have enough to land one. Best way I can explain it is not a resource problem that you have, despite what you might think, despite if you might think I'm actually from India, I'm from Brazil, I'm from this, I'm from that. It is a resourcefulness problem. So how you utilize the existing resources you have available to you to land that client. Also, keep in mind, the most fundamental thing about landing a client cannot hire somebody that they do not know exists, okay? So either you have to reach out to them or they have to find you. For client number 1, the bottom arrow is basically going to be 0 because you have nothing to your name. How's a client going to find you? Maybe on an off chance referral whatever the case, something like that might happen. But for most individuals, you're going to have to reach out directly to the client because they're not going to be able to find you, okay? And I want to make this clear. Nobody is coming to knock on your door. Nobody is coming to save you in this particular case. You have to go knock on theirs. This is the most fundamental job when it comes to client acquisition. This is the part that most software engineers do not properly comprehend, okay? Another good way to kind of think about this is imagine that you are a doctor in this particular case and your client is the patient. Whenever you, let's say, knock on the door and they open the door, you don't immediately start pitching meds at the door. You begin the diagnosis first, right? So you begin to understand the pain they're going through. You try to understand it better than they do such that you can explain it back to them. And then you prescribe the necessary meds. But the trust that comes between the client and the solution provider, that comes from the diagnosis, not the actual cell itself. So let's recap everything we just talked about. The most fundamental thing I need you to take away from the session 1 is it is not a resource problem that you have. It's a resourcefulness problem. So don't think for 1 second that you don't have something you need to get a client. It's most of the time you don't know how to utilize what you have to get a client. Second, clients cannot hire a ghost. You cannot be invisible to them. How is somebody going to find you if you're invisible to them? Also, client 1, I shouldn't say always here, but I should say 99.9% is going to come from outbound, not inbound. So not a client reaching out to you, but rather you reaching out to a client. And of course, you need to diagnose before you sell, okay? That's session 1. Now, the 2 real reasons as to why you are stuck right now, be it if you've gotten a few clients under your belt and you're struggling to get more, or you have yet to get an existing client. I hear this almost every single time I hop on a call. I've had over 1,000 calls now with software engineers, and they'll tell me something along the lines of, so yeah, I sent about 10 emails and I got nothing. My offer must suck and I gave up and I'm going to move on to the next one. My first immediate response is, okay, let's assume you sent a cold email that has a reply rate of 3 to 5%, which is already pretty respective. 10 emails statistically buys you half a reply, okay? Cold emails to one signed client is 1 in 464 on average. If you sent out 10, you did not even test your offer. You literally tested 2% of what would be a coin flip. So whenever I hear stuff like this, my first immediate thing is, well, you need to raise your expectations, okay? What you think amounts to a good enough sample size is way less than what you actually need to put in, the work you need to put in. What ends up happening is most people are reading their win rate off of 10 hands or 15 hands or like, let's say 20 emails, 1 email, 3 emails. But they're not understanding that they haven't actually tried yet. They haven't put themselves out there. You might think 10 is already an uncomfortable amount, it's 10 strangers, but just in reality, you need to raise that number way up until it actually becomes uncomfortable for you. You tried the idea of trying, now do it 50 times, not 5. Do it 500 times, not 10. Do it 1,000 times, not 15. Only then can you be sure with 100% certainty that, okay, this offer did not work out. You don't want to give yourself the excuse that, oh, the offer didn't work out because you were lazy and you didn't do enough outreach, okay? Another thing. When it comes to, let's say, the same individual that sent out those 10 or 15 emails, when I ask them, okay, how many follow-ups did you send out after you sent out those 10 to 15, they'll tell me, oh, maybe 1, but most, no follow-ups. Because they got quote-unquote ghosted or they didn't get a reply, they took it personally and they said, oh, I don't want to bother this person or this person doesn't care enough, and they didn't send up a follow-up. But replies that comes from follow-ups makes up 55% of all the replies. If you quit at message 1, you're never going to know that the yes to your exact email lives at message 4, okay? And of course, reason number 2, you are way too broad. When I speak with most software engineers, they describe what they do sort of like I'm reading a resume for a job application they're sending in. They'll say, I build software, but that's not an offer. Obviously, you're a software engineer. You need to know how to build software. And they might say, I can build anything, thinking it makes them look really good for the client. But in reality, all it really does is just confuse the client even more. What do you mean you're a software engineer? You can build anything. So why haven't you built, the cure to cancer or something like that? it's a little ambiguous of a statement. What you want to do is you need to be a lot more specific. One of the best ways you can think about it is, I help, and I insert a very specific person in here, fix, and then a very specific pain. Vague most of the time is going to get ignored. Specific will at least get you a reply, okay? And understand, the real blocker is almost never actually the offer, because even with a bad offer, you can still get a client. The problem isn't that client acquisition by itself is difficult. It's that people treat client acquisition as a race, when in reality, it is more so of a marathon, right? You can get almost any client with any offer. That's the interesting thing. There's people out there selling bathwater. There's people out there selling used underwear. You can get any client with almost any offer. That's not the issue. The issue is, can you do it consistently? Can you do it with as little friction as possible? And yet, can you do it at a pace where it's growing month over month and you have a future and there's something in it for the long term for you? That's where the real problem comes into play. So the real blocker is almost never the offer, at least from a first glance perspective. Obviously, the offer can be improved to make that entire process better. But the first thing you actually want to get comfortable with, the first thing you want to identify is going to be that concept of reaching out to somebody and being okay with rejected, right? It's that most software engineers do not want to get rejected again, that they don't send the follow-ups, that they don't send enough of the outreaches necessary to break in that particular amount where their first client might trickle in. This is the biggest problem that I've seen. It hasn't come from the fact that people don't know what they're offering. Even if you have a very bad offer, and I know this is going to be controversial advice because nobody's probably said this before, even with a really bad offer, you can still get a client if you do enough outreach, right? So the problem here isn't necessarily the bad offer. Obviously, I'm not telling you to go with a bad offer. Your offer needs to be as good as possible. But the problem here really comes down to the amount of work you're simply doing. Most people are severely underestimating the amount of work they have to do. But if I were to make a comparison, it's really not that bad compared to your 9 to 5. If you're spending 8 hours a day at your 9 to 5, in those 8 hours, you can literally do so much outreach if you dedicate just one day to it. But most people don't think of it that way. So, recap for session number 2. 10 emails, if that's you, it's a statistical nightmare. You're not going to get anything out of it. Way too small of a sample size. Most people are also too broad. That's why they get ghosted. And remember, low volume isn't nearly enough effort for you to get to where you want to get to. And the fear is real. You're going to be afraid of rejection, but move anyway. You have to do it. There's no other choice. Now, this is a really big one. Stop thinking in niches when it comes to client acquisition. Another controversial one, because everybody and their mother tells you, niche down, niche down, niche down, choose a niche, choose a niche, choose a niche, choose a niche. But you need to stop thinking in niches, okay? You are not targeting an industry. You are not targeting a niche. Your target is a person. The person that's going to pay you that money. The $10,000 you're going to get from your first client isn't going to come from an industry. It's going to come from a very specific person who has a very specific problem that you're going to help solve. It's going to be a person with pain and a budget. An industry, so something like dentists, realtors, restaurants, do not target it that way. Instead, think of the person. So the owner who is bleeding money on this particular problem. Industries do not sign checks. People do. And another thing, you can have a person who has a particular problem that spans multiple industries, but you can't have it the other way around. So always target the person, not the industry. Always. And there's 4 questions you need to ask yourself before you reach out. Who has a particular pain point? Who cares enough to actually pay about it? Who can actually decide to wire me the money the second they make a decision? And where do they hang out such that I can find them? These 4 questions, if you have an answer to them, then you have your person. But if they cannot say yes, you are wasting your time. This is one of the biggest mistakes I see with software engineers when it comes to client acquisition. They spend so much time dealing with non-decision makers, okay? You literally, if you decide to pitch a non-decision maker, you are essentially saying to yourself, I don't care about my time. Here, have a week of my life, okay? You need to always pitch the decision maker. If you somehow got in contact with the non-decision maker, you need to ask them for an intro for the decision maker. Always qualify first and then talk second. Another thing, whenever you are going to talk, do not describe what you do. Nobody actually cares, genuinely. Describe what changes when they work with you. So it's not that, oh, I write Python and I build apps. It's that your late invoices disappear completely. What changes when you work with me? What is the result that comes from working with me? Not what do I do, right? Nobody cares about what you do. The reason they're asking what you do is to find out what's going to change in their life. How can it be beneficial to them? That's the question they're really asking. So let's recap this session. Target a person, not a niche. Extremely important you understand this point here. Pain, budget plus authority. That's what you're looking for. You need to skip all the non-decision makers and ask them to connect you to the decision makers. And you need to sell the after. So the actual outcome. You need to describe what changes, not what you do, not the work that you're going to do. I really want to hone in on this target a person, not a niche, because this was one of the mistakes that I made when I started off. The second I switched it to target a person, I had more success in 1 year of business than some people do in 5 to 10 years of doing business targeting a niche as opposed to a person. So this is probably one of the most important points here in this entire video. Now, moving on. The exact order to reach out. How do we actually go about reaching out? Well, the way I like to think of it is there are 4 circles that we have to essentially understand. And what we're going to do is start at the center, from the smallest circle. Most people start at the edge and they work backwards. This is another very big mistake that people make. However, you need to start from the first circle right here. And that first circle is your direct and immediate network. This is what I mean when I say it's a resourcefulness problem, not a resource problem. Every single one of you watching this video has people in your network. You might have a lawyer, you might have a dentist, you might have a doctor, whatever the case. You will have people that you know on a first name basis who will either be able to intro you to a business owner or who are business owners themselves. There will be people who will be able to help you. All you need to do is ask. But the way you ask, I'll get into this later with the framing. I'm not going to get into it now because I don't want to confuse people. The way you ask also makes a difference. But after your immediate network, your next bet is your local area. Chamber of Commerce, PNI, these things. And then you get into cold outreach, which you might be familiar with as cold email. Most people start from here. Not a good idea. And last but not least, of course, you have ads and spending money and marketing and all those things. Now, circle 1, everybody you know by a first name basis. And I guarantee you for 99.99% of you, that first $10,000 from your first client is sitting in your phone right now or in your contact list, wherever else. Can they help you or can they introduce you to somebody? If yes, you pitch them. If not, you ask for a warm intro. Simple as that. All you really need to do is grab your phone, open up your LinkedIn or whatever you use, Instagram maybe if you have more people on there. Tag every single contact that you have based on owner, decision maker, or connector. And if they're an owner, you pitch them directly. If they're a decision maker, you pitch them directly. If they're a connector, you ask for an intro to a decision maker or an owner. Most of the time, it's the same. And honestly, you don't have to do this manually. The way I would recommend it, you dump it all into one sheet. Most LinkedIn has an export button, and then your phone also has an export button as well you can use. Dump it all in one sheet and just give it to Cloud Code, and you can build a tagger in literally a couple minutes. And you're done with this exercise. Circle number 2, walking into your own city, your local area. Chamber of Commerce, meetups, Business Network International, other places like that. Join the chamber immediately right after this video. If you haven't already and you're based in the United States, you are missing out on so much opportunity. Join the chamber. It's going to be maximum $300 a year, 400. I would say the most expensive I've seen. Go to the first meeting. Be the only engineer in a room full of people with actual money and also problems that you'll be able to help out. You can take it a step further and offer to even present at these meetings. That's for a different video, but nevertheless, this is going to be an extremely easy way to acquire not only your first couple clients, but also it's going to be a conduit for you to acquire more and more clients over the course of the upcoming months. Now, the circle where client 1 lives, like I said before, will be 1 or 2. For 99% of you, you'll probably get it from 1, and then that other 1% will get it from 2. If you are not getting a client from circle 1 or 2, you are doing something fundamentally incorrect. And I'll get into it in the latter half of this video when it comes to framing. But it's extremely important you understand. I have not yet seen a case, a genuine case, where I've worked with a software engineer and they have not been able to get a client from the first circle or the second circle. Up until now, it has just not been possible. If that's been the case, they've done something wrong, we fixed it, and they were able to get it. So now, is there a chance that you might not have a client in 1 or 2? Maybe, but it's such a minuscule chance that I would not think that you are the exception, okay? So treat this as if your client is with 100% certainty in 1 or 2. It's your job to simply look for them and find them, okay? Circles 3 and 4 are the last resort for your first client, okay? Cold outreach and ads. Only after the inner circles are exhausted will you go to these exact things. Most people immediately start off from cold emails. This is one of the worst things you can do because you're just wasting money. You don't understand the core of marketing yet. You haven't improved your skills yet. You haven't even had one single human conversation yet, and you're instantly jumping into cold outreach. Do not ever do that. Utilize your network, utilize the local area, and then, if all else fails, then go into cold outreach. Now, if you already have a few clients under your belt, you've truly exhausted the list, then you can get into cold outreach and ads because already at that point in time, you will have testimonials, things that will actually help you out on your journey. So remember, warm is almost always going to be free, way faster, high trust. Cold, you have zero trust, it's costly, and it's slow. Earn the right to go cold by working with the warm circle first. Now, another thing, I get really passionate when I talk about cold outreach, is the record label slush pile. Everybody and their mother wants to pitch it because people don't fundamentally understand what cold outreach actually is. Almost nobody gets signed from an unsolicited stack. Mail the demo to strangers and pray. That's pretty much what most people are doing. The only time a cold outreach is going to work is if you have a genuine understanding of the person that you are targeting. Only then can you construct a 150 word, a 200 word email such that you are able to get their attention and get them on a call and sell them, okay? You need to genuinely actually have an idea as to what you're doing. Could you, off chance or by luck, land a client this way? Maybe you're from your first 500. I've seen people that do it. Sure, I've done it myself as well. I've gotten lucky within my first 650 that I got a client from cold outreach. But did I actually have a clue what I was doing? No, and I simply chalked it up to luck. Because if I tried to do it again at that point in time, I would have suffered. So what I did is I went back, I did it the right way. I grew it organically based on just my network, people around me. Once I had testimonials, then I got into cold outreach and advertisement because then I knew the game. Do not rush into this. You are simply not going to get results for most of you, and then you're going to get demotivated and say it doesn't work and you're going to give up, okay? So do the walk-ins first. Deal happens through someone who vouches, okay? Same in every other industry. Music industry, you see it in, filming industry, same thing in software. People buy from those they trust and they like. In cold outreach, it's really hard to get people to like and trust you. Session number 4 recap. Start at the center circle and then move outwards. So I'm not saying don't do these things. I'm saying just do them progressively, chronological order. Audit your phone and LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever you're going to have most clients or most contacts in. Chamber and local for circle 2. Remember that. So your local area, local businesses, BNIs, chamber, definitely join those. And then cold and ads as a last resort. Now, session number 5, the 5-line message that closed my particular client. This was about $16,000 and I didn't have a website just yet. What you need to understand is you are never actually pitching them, even though it sounds like a pitch. You are informing them. If you ask them, do you need a website for 2K? That's going to get you ghosted. But if you say, hey, I help X with Y, is this a problem for you or anybody that you know? It's a lot better than, hey, want a website, it's 2K. It's the same goal, you're still going to create a website for them, but it's a completely different energy. For example, if I help dentists with visibility problems or with SEO or whatever, or increasing their conversion rates, something along those lines, where you actually target the problem, it's going to be a lot better than, hey, want a website. Henry Ford has a really good quote on this, right? He said, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse, not the car. Same exact thing here. You never want to ask people what they want. You want to tell them, I help these type of individuals, so the person with this particular problem. Are you this individual yourself, or did you know anybody that falls into this category? And the 5 thing here that I'm discussing is not something that you're going to copy paste and then go and send out and instantly get a client. What I want you to understand are the 5 feelings. I want you to understand the emotional journey that somebody is going through. Like, I'm going to say this again. Do not copy this word for word. It will not work for you. You need to understand the feeling that is being created, the emotional state we are putting the person in, okay? First, you need to give a personal opener, or at least, if it's not personalized, it needs to be relevant. Most people mix this up. Relevancy is extremely important here. It needs to be personal, but also relevant. If it's not personal, it at least needs to be relevant, such that the person can identify, okay, this is for me. What's the feeling that's being created? It's unique to me. It's mine. My attention goes on this. This isn't a spam email, or this isn't a spam message being blasted out to everybody and their mother. This is for me. Next, you mirror the pain. How do they know that? How can they understand what I'm going through? Must mean they're experienced, or they have some type of authority in this particular case. When you walk into a doctor's office and a doctor perfectly describes your pain to you and all the symptoms you're experiencing that you haven't yet told him, you're like, oh, he's seen this before, so he probably knows how to fix this, right? Then what you need is credibility, things that get them to trust you, case studies, testimonials, anything of that sort where they can think, okay, this guy's legit. So they understand this is for me. So whatever way you use to reach out, this can be a phone call, this can be an email, this can be you walked up to your best friend that you knew for 45 years and you're talking to them right now. They need to understand, okay, this is for me. This conversation, this is for me. And wow, okay, how do they know that? How do they know about the pain? Okay, they sound pretty legit though. Like, he has an MD, he's a doctor, right? He's helped so many other people too. Offer a shortcut for the solution that you're going to provide to this problem. Oh, this is actually going to be pretty easy. You want to reduce the friction as much as possible, and you want to make the ask easy. Yeah, I can just say yes to it. Perfect. Doesn't require too much from me. So what was the 5 feelings that we created? First and foremost, we personalized it and made it relevant to them such that they know they need to spend time and energy on this. You showcase that you understand them. You understand the pain they're going through. If you show somebody you understand their pain, chances are you also know how to solve that pain. Automatically builds credibility. Of course, you then have the actual credibility builder here, and then you offer a shortcut, the solution, such that it's as frictionless and as effortless from their side as possible. You want to make the ask as easy as possible as well. They say yes, and then you're good to go. If you miss a feeling here, the whole thing is going to just crumble down and feel like spam. Regardless if you're doing cold emails, ads, reaching out to somebody in person, reaching out to your best friend in person as well. If these feelings are not created, it doesn't matter how warm the person is, it's just not going to be the same, okay? Whenever they see that personalized and relevant, key point relevant opener, they're going to think, okay, this is actually about me. Wait, how do they already know exactly what I'm dealing with? Okay, this isn't just some random person. They can actually do this. They sound pretty confident. Wait, this is going to be way easier than I initially thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be this whole headache, but okay, I can literally just say yes to this. This costs me nothing. I would feel dumb if I didn't say yes to this. This is an offer too good for me to refuse. Godfather code, right? I'm going to make him an offer so good he can't refuse. Same exact thing here. I'm not telling you to go threaten him, by the way. Don't take that the wrong way. Now, remember how before I told you, I'm going to get into it in the latter half of this video. It's extremely important that you reach out to individuals, but everything revolves around framing. This is the biggest problem with software engineers. The amount of software engineers that have self-sabotaged clients and just their own success due to framing is absurd. And I want to say that every single thing about client acquisition lies in framing. How you frame yourself. You control how your client is going to see you. Oftentimes in the first 2 lines or in the first impression, right? That's a don't judge a book by its cover, but that's exactly what a book cover is for. You never want to frame yourself as a desperate freelancer or as just a guy who got fired or as just a regular dev that gets paid $15 an hour. You always want to frame yourself as the expert, such that they know if they hop on a call with you, they're not doing you a favor, but rather you are doing them a favor, okay? I'll get more into that, but let me first give a session 5 recap. We want to create 5 feelings, okay? This is for them, it's personalized and relevant, mirroring the pain, building trust, offering a shortcut, making the ask so good they feel stupid, saying no. If you land all 5 in their reply, it's going to be perfect. If you miss one, it's going to read like spam, it's just not going to work out. Now, session number 6. How one client can become 5, and then 5 become 25, and then so on and so forth. A referral, one of the biggest things that people don't do, skips the trust building process. 88% of people trust people they know over an advertisement, obviously. Okay? If you take a look at how B2B SaaS buyers actually find vendors, it's very interesting. 42 come from word of mouth, 2 come from cold outreach. Look at the difference between this. 42 comes from word of mouth, 2% comes from cold outreach. Even buyers with massive budgets find people, not product. The business you're in is not the product business. The business you're in is in a people business. It's not about whatever the product you're selling. It's not about the software. It's not about none of that. It's always about the people, okay? Now, when it comes to the ratio of people willing to refer and how many actually get asked, 91% of people are willing to refer you and only 11% get asked. Look at the dichotomy between that. This gap is one of the freest money sitting on the table right now, especially if you already have an existing client. Just ask them to refer you to somebody. I usually do this within what I call a 24-hour referral move. You literally write the message for them and you just ask them to forward it. Land the win, within 24 hours ask, make it zero work for them such that they just click send and that's it. Lowest friction possible, they point, you do everything else. And one referral beats 1,000 cold leads any day of the week. You're gonna have a higher close rate, you're gonna have 0 acquisition cost, and the trust is gonna come preloaded, and the person who referred is also gonna be feeling even better and more likely to refer again, okay? Now, when it comes to inbound, because obviously you also need inbound, you need people to find you when it comes to building a structure out for clients to come to you. Think of outbound as a faucet and inbound as a river. You control the faucet right now and you build the river over the years. The river is not instantaneous, not at all. It takes at least, from my personal opinion, at least a good 6 months before you have a proper inbound channel set up where it's consistently bringing you in clients. But you do need both, and in this exact order. The faucet comes first, okay? Now, to do a little bit of a recap, referrals beat almost everything else. You want to ask for the referral within 24 hours when you get them the result, make it as frictionless as possible, and remember the faucet now, river later analogy. And here's what just happened to this whole entire game that nobody's really connecting. AI made code pretty much free. So the code stopped being the most important thing. Technical skills are now the least important thing when it comes to a software engineer. Because now you can build a thing that nobody else could build before, even a non-technical person, to a certain degree, obviously. I don't want to make it too simple. So you need to be the person that they trust in the room, meaning marketing, sales skills, communication skills, all the soft skills have now become the actual moat. People skills, understanding people. The game moved completely from the keyboard to having conversations. So the scarce thing right now is the one who knocks, diagnoses, and stays accountable. Because when anybody can generate an app, but almost nobody can get in the room to talk to the people that need the app and actually sell them properly. Everything in this video was building that skill for you. To get you to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, to get you to put yourself into situations where you go out and talk with people, to get you to understand the most fundamental skill in all of this has to do with people. It has nothing to do with your product. It has nothing to do with your technical skills. It has nothing to do about any of that. Everything stems from people, okay? The engineers who understand this will own the next decade. The ones polishing a task nobody asked for are simply just going to get knocked out of the race. So knock, diagnose, get paid. Understand people, build people skills. Extremely important. And remember, raise your standards and expectations. You need to do way more than what you're doing right now to get clients. The people who are building in silence waiting to be found, unfortunately, they are not going to have a very good time in the future to come, okay? So the whole system pretty much on one screen for you to understand. It's a resourcefulness problem, not a resource problem. All of you have everything you need to land your first client. You need to target a person, not a niche, another very big mistake. You need to work the circles inside and out, start from immediate network, then local, then move on. The 5-line message, less about the message itself, the words you say, and more about the emotional journey you take them on. And of course, you want to snowball with referrals. 5 steps in this exact order. You give this a proper try. I guarantee you, you will make more money in a few months than you will ever make in your entire life. And I want you to do these 3 things before the weekend. Audit your phone and LinkedIn or Instagram, wherever you have the most contacts. Write your I help X with Y line, one specific person, one specific pain, one sentence. And then send the 5-line message to 20 people. And 20, not 5, and not soon, immediately. If you want to actually do it properly, instead of 20, you would send it to as many people as you possibly can without placing a limit on it. And this I help X with Y line, if you don't know exactly who it is, start from essentially just one thing at a time and move on from there. You most likely have an idea as to who you want to help with what, write that down, and then move on from there. Or what you can also do, honestly, instead of this, is join your chamber of commerce. If you join your chamber of commerce, you're going to be forced to have this because people are going to ask you, what do you do? You're going to need to come up with an answer. And you're going to meet a bunch of other business owners that you'll probably be able to say, wait a minute, I can help out this guy, and go from there. Okay? The window is open right now for this opportunity. It's not going to stay open. Every single month you wait, another agency is going to learn to fake what you already have. And in order to for me to really hone this in for you, I'm holding a free live masterclass on particularly Cloud Code on June 21st, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I'm going to talk about how to make $50,000 a month with it as a developer, the highest leverage use cases, and secrets from my own experience building a multi-million-dollar company utilizing AI, and particularly Claude. So I'm going to talk about it from the perspective of the fulfillment side for client work, but also on the back-end side of running a business, and how to utilize all of this to build a presence in your local area as the AI guy. If you want to work with me directly, feel free to apply to code2co.com, 5-minute application. If it goes through, you'll hop on a call with me and then we can discuss. And understand, nobody is coming to save you. Nobody's coming to knock on your door, so you got to go and knock on theirs. That first $10,000 that you want is already in your phone. You just need to keep pushing. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good rest of your day.